The whole Jeffrey Epstein thing is finally going to come to a conclusion. Donald Trump has given his blessing to release all the files and the information on the cases, and Congress is going to release the files, and it's all going to be open to everybody to see it. But I think you really need to understand exactly what happened with the Epstein files and the case in 2005 and 2006 when that whole investigation started. So stick around to the end of the video. I'm going to hopefully clarify some things for you to the best of my knowledge and the things that I looked into, investigated, and the books that I read on the case, as well as the information from the federal prosecutor and the federal investigator that looked into the whole case with Jeffrey Epstein. He was looked into in 2005 and 2006 because he got busted. So there's an investigation, he got busted. So what happened was Jeffrey Epstein knew a lot of people. He prided himself on the people that he knew, powerful people. He knew Prince Andrew, he knew Bill Clinton, and he hung out with these folks. Now, his relationship with Prince Andrew was through Ghislaine Maxwell because she was over there, lived over there, she knew all these people, and he just loved it. And he had a lot of FU money. And he also knew Les Wexner, which is the owner of Victoria's Secrets, as well as a bunch of other popular brands. He's a billionaire. And there's been a lot of money that was sent from Les Wexner to Epstein. But nobody really knows how Jeffrey Epstein really made his money. He was a financial manager, but as a financial manager, you would think his name would be pretty prominent throughout those circles, but it just really wasn't. So it's a little suspect on where he gets his money from. Anyway, he was getting prosecuted federally by the state of Florida and the federal government. Comes in Alex Acosta, who was the federal prosecutor in the case. Now, years later, Alex Acosta served in the Trump administration 11 years later after Trump won in 2016, which really has no relation to the case. It's just that Alex Acosta was a very ambitious prosecutor, and his goal in life, and he has said this, is to become a Supreme Court justice. That was his end goal the whole time. So when Donald Trump got elected, he served as Donald Trump's Secretary of Labor, which is a good job for somebody who was very ambitious and had visions of grandeur in his career. So that was a good stepping stone for him. But when he got in front of Congress and Senate to do his hearings on his position, he wasn't really asked about the whole Epstein thing. He wasn't asked very many questions at all about the whole case or the prosecution and the sweetheart deal that he gave Jeffrey Epstein. In 2008, Jeffrey Epstein agreed to a plea deal. And under that agreement, he pled guilty to 2 charges. 1 count for procuring person under the age of 18 for prostitution and 1 count for soliciting prostitution. His sentence was only 18 months in a Florida county jail. He didn't even have to go to prison. Though he practiced, he served approximately 13 months in that jail and was allowed to leave during the week and only had to serve his time during the weekend. His sentence, he was required to register as a sex offender, and the plea deal included immunity from federal prosecution for himself and a named co-conspirator for the acts covered in the entire deal. So that was part of the deal that he had. So here's where it gets interesting. During the whole plea deal that when he got sentenced, the judge that saw the whole case was substituted at the day of the sentencing. So there was a new judge that came in the day he was sentenced. The women or the girls that were the victims were not told of the plea deal. They weren't even told when the plea deal was going to happen. So the majority of them never had to have their victim statements put out in front of the judge. Kind of strange as well. And the whole thing was sealed and very hush-hush. The reasons why? Jeffrey Epstein had a lot of money. Jeffrey Epstein had FU money. And Jeffrey Epstein knew a lot of people. A lot of powerful people. Now, earlier in the 2000s, he traveled with Bill Clinton, former President Bill Clinton, on the Lolita Express, Jeffrey Epstein's private famous airplane. And they toured all through Africa doing some AIDS fundraising throughout the continent. That was 60 days worth, I believe. So he had a relationship with Bill Clinton. How deep it goes, I don't really know. I haven't seen the files, but we know he was with him for approximately 60 days during that whole thing. Now, so when Jeffrey Epstein got arrested and prosecuted in this whole thing, guess who else was concerned about it? Hillary Clinton. Now, you and I both know that Hillary Clinton wanted to be president of the United States. Ever since she was the first lady, she wanted to run for president. So now your husband is involved with a guy who's arrested for doing things with women, young ladies under the age of 18. How's that going to look when you want to run for president? Doesn't look very good. So if I was Jeffrey Epstein, I would call in some favors. And I'd call in some big people for those favors. And who better to call than a former president of the United States? And that's what I think happened. I think a lot of the prosecution for Jeffrey Epstein was a sweetheart deal because he knew and had a personal relationship with former President Bill Clinton, among a bunch of other people. Les Wexner as well, I mentioned him. But when your wife wants to run for president, you can't have any black eye on your record. And that would have been a huge black eye. The association alone with somebody like Epstein would have been enough to derail any campaign that she had. And that's why Jeffrey Epstein, in my opinion, got such a sweetheart deal. And that's why he only served 13 months in a county jail. That's why he was able to leave during the week and only had to serve during the weekends. Even though he had to register as a sex offender in New York and Florida, and he tried to get it out, tried to get out of it, but a federal judge in New York said, no, you still got to register. But then what happened? He went up to his old tricks again and his shenanigans and got busted again, and that's why in 2019 he was arrested. But there isn't a whole smoking gun with Donald Trump in this whole thing. There are other people that are involved. And Jeffrey Epstein prided himself on the people that he knew, very important, powerful people. And when you know very important, powerful people, you can call favors in to keep you out of jail. I'm not saying there was anything there or accusing President Clinton of anything wrongdoing, but it sure seems suspicious to me. Epstein was also considered an intelligent asset. To what extent, we don't really know. That's just speculation. The federal prosecutor in the case, Glenn Prager, he stated as such in an undercover interview by the O'Keefe Media Group that he stated factually that Jeffrey Epstein worked for the CIA as far as like maybe the Mossad as well. So that's also part of the weirdness about this whole thing as well. Maybe that's what helped protect Jeffrey Epstein and got him a sweetheart deal in 2008. But that remains to be seen. But that is some speculation for that information as far as Jeffrey Epstein's concerned on being an intelligent asset. So that's a little bit of the background of the whole Epstein thing. Because what happened between the time he got out of jail in around 2010 or 11 to 2019 is anybody's guess. There was a lot of victims. A lot of young ladies were paid. There's also a lot of young ladies that had nothing to do with Epstein that claimed he assaulted them as well, and they were paid. Still doesn't excuse things that he did, because they were horrifying. I've read a lot of books on it, and it's pretty sick what he does. And Ghislaine Maxwell, she deserves to be in prison just like he does. She instigated it. She's the one that got Virginia Giuffre from Mar-a-Lago to come work at Epstein's place and give him massages, while her father was the one that was employed at Mar-a-Lago. Her father used to drive her to Epstein's house. Yeah, weird. A lot of people were involved in this. And a lot of people are going to go down for this. A lot of people are probably right now looking for defense attorneys to try to help him get out of this. I think this is a huge embarrassment for a lot of people that are associated with the man. And that's the information you're going to get. And when you're rich and powerful and you donate hundreds of millions of dollars to campaigns, you can stop things from coming out. And that's exactly what happened. And I think Donald Trump realized that he can't protect anybody anymore. And I think he probably was. I think he was just realizing that there's some people on there that probably had nothing to do with it that are going to get their names dragged through the mud because of a simple association with Jeffrey Epstein. And I can understand that. Or people are speculating now he won't have that Trump card to utilize to make people do what he needs to do to get bills passed, which I think that's far-fetched. I just think he's probably trying to protect some people that he may know and not ruin someone's life. But we'll see what happens. But that's my take on this. The whole Epstein thing is a big nothing burger as far as Donald Trump's concerned. Those women should get their day in court. These women should be allowed to go after the gentleman that hurt them. It's their right. But this has been a long time, and nobody's put out their names. None of these women have put out any of these individuals' names that have hurt them, if there were other people involved. It kind of all fell on Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. So we'll see what happens in the next couple of weeks and see when those files come out. I'm sure they're going to redact names of all the individuals on it, and I don't think they should. I think they should let everything out, everything in the open. Because look what happened with the files they just released, the emails. They redacted Virginia Giuffre's name. Why? Because he wanted to look like there was something there when it really wasn't. Because we already know that she testified in front of a grand jury. She wrote in her book that Donald Trump had nothing to do with it. And I don't believe he did. But I think he's finally made the right choice. The pressure got to him. And it's the absolute correct thing to do. Drop a comment below. Let me know your thoughts. And join the conversation.